and the old ways of doing things. In what ways are you working with those, and what are you doing in that respect? I'll share with you, Lucas.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess just as a quick introduction of the space that we're working in, I'm with Amber Agriculture. So we're focused on introducing IoT within the post-harvest processes of grain production for farmers. So this would be Midwest corn and soybean farmers. And we're introducing automation within how they store grain like corn and soybeans, and helping them preserve the quality by taking the quality reads of grain and automating when aeration controls kick on and off throughout the month to a year that they would store that grain in their own bin. And it's all focused on helping them get as much of their grain volume to the right level so that they can get as high a price as possible when they deliver it to market. So when we talk about the systems that exist for farmers today within this very specific process, we're competing against one, just kind of the manual gut check process that most farmers do a lot of their decision making with, which has worked beautiful in the past, but it's an area where precision can enter in and help them find efficiencies that they can't quite capture with their kind of gut check methods today. Or the competitor products, which have about a 10% adoption rate within the space that we're attacking, are all very, very old systems that were developed 15, 20 years ago that have very high installation costs as well as replacement cost of failure rates after 3 or 4 years. So we're trying to introduce our tech in a way, kind of using modern infrastructure, wireless systems that can be easily installed by the farmers themselves.
And my name is Zach Sapala. I run a company called Particle, and we're an Internet of Things platform. So we help companies bring products online, essentially to dramatically simplify things. And to reference the story that you mentioned. So a lot of our customers are companies that have been making products for a very long time. Sort of picture a sort of mid-market hardware manufacturer that makes some kind of industrial equipment or some kind of physical product. They've been doing it for a long time. They used to manufacture everything themselves. They used to have a manufacturing facility. They used to kind of be vertically integrated. In the 90s and early 2000s, there was a big wave of outsourcing, so they started buying more of their products kind of fully already assembled from China or Taiwan. Originally, it was just the manufacturing that was done there, and they did their own design and engineering work. But over time, the quality of design and engineering coming out of their contract manufacturers got higher and higher, and eventually they just started using them to do the design work too. So you end up with a company that might have make $500 million in revenue every year, selling a bunch of stuff, but they don't actually make any of it or design any of it. And they've got 2 engineers. They have like 2 people who can build something. And so now Internet of Things comes around, and that company is expected by their board or their CEO or something to sort of be revolutionized and turned into a software company. And those 2 engineers are like, what? Like, that's not who we are. We gave up all our skills, and now we're asked to sort of to modernize. And so those are often the companies we support, where we're helping them figure out how do they become software companies and how do they re-engage and rebuild their engineering skills, while at the same time delivering a connected product to market in a faster time than it would take to rebuild your team from scratch.
Hi, my name is Vikas. I'm the co-founder of Active Content. So what we are is we're essentially a real-time platform for manufacturing with a focus on quality. What that means is we offer essentially a cloud dashboard that allows operations managers to see their production and quality tasks happening in real time on their floor. On the floor, we have quality inspectors that basically roam around with our mobile devices and can go through live quality checks and integrate with sensor data during testing. We encounter legacy systems all the time, and that's actually a major challenge for us. Like every factory site is different, and data can be in many places. You can have legacy ERP systems, you can have manual processes, you can have other systems as well. So for us, the challenges are basically feeding data into our system and being able to extract data after the fact from our system. And the way we go about doing that is we build essentially a relatively open API structure. So it's easy for people to feed data from legacy systems through our push API system. And it's easy to retrieve data through our get API system. We also have a manual process whereby people can simply import data from spreadsheets and so forth. And we found that that may actually be useful because some of these systems literally have no endpoints to integrate with. So that was a huge benefit for us, and it makes our system versatile in that sense. And that's one of the challenges we face for sure.
And Vikas, you gave some really good information about that. And John, I'll get to you. I mean, we may not get to everyone on every question, but you were saying the kinds of things you can see are what's happening on the factory floor real time. Like if you conduct a pressure test, you can determine the ambient pressure of this product during storage. You can see stuff. And that's kind of like what you said, Lucas, about, giving one of the big benefits of IoT, let's start there, is giving people more information than they had before. You spoke to the fact that farmers would like to have more information about where their food is coming from. You're giving people more factory floor information. Can you speak to the way to best present that so that it's actually useful and helpful?
Sure, yeah. So the value behind essentially the real-time factory information is essentially when it comes to the work process, the quality process. All products that are made from heavy industrial manufacturers go through a significant quality process. They go through an incoming process, an assembly process, and then a final process, final testing. And during these processes, a lot of checks are sometimes done manually. They're imported into legacy systems on site. They're not actionable in the moment. If issues happen and you need to go through a rework process, there's no visibility into that. We offer all that visibility because we leverage mobile devices to immediately get that data to the cloud and then offer that visually for managers to act upon in the moment. And that is essentially our value add. The whole concept is that you cut production cycles, improve rework times, and then increase ROI. And that's what we're about.
So yeah, I mean, I think on the information side, I think it's a fine line that farmers, have the opportunity to collect a lot of information, but also when these technologies are presented to them, and you can have these new insights, this new data, you're also creating more work for them, and that's something that they're thinking about. If that's interesting, but now that's data that I have to spend 2 hours making a decision. So you might have just created more work for me. So when we're talking about IoT and presenting that to them, we really want to introduce it within a precision system where we collect that data, but we're also, talking to that machine to automate that process so you don't have to think and analyze that data yourselves. On the information front, really where we're wanting to kind of maximizing on having all of this real-time data is helping farmers leverage all of the information that they're collecting to present that to others who are interested in the information. So there's this backward pressure in the market of food companies, food brands, wanting more and more information about the ingredients that they're using in their products. So we think that there's a great opportunity to not only introduce this precision to help them with their management decisions and price optimization, but also helping them, if they so choose, share that information that they're collecting in a marketplace where food brands and food companies who are seeking that information can have access to it as well.
Got it.
So the first question, I'm John Suh. I manage Hyundai Ventures, which is the corporate venture capital office for Hyundai Motor Group. We're based here in Menlo Park, and within the group, we have both the Kia and the Hyundai brands. In terms of manufacturing, I actually think I'm a bit biased, but Hyundai Motor Group is a 50-year-old company, so we have fairly modern manufacturing facilities. I think where we are maybe old-fashioned would be in 3 areas. It could be in management and thinking, because a lot of the management comes from a mechanical engineering background versus software or electronics. It could be in where we're behind is in the retail chains. We're still using a dealership model right? Where still he had to go to a dealership to buy or to lease a car. And a third area we might be behind is the adaptability, to be adaptive to software and services. And so how do you change the business model due to software, due to connectivity, and things like that?
And that's the kind of stuff you're working on, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, we've got more conversation about that. I was digging into the stuff that you were saying. Well, you know what? Let's go there. In order to make those big shifts, you're doing something with Cisco around standards. Can you speak to that?
So we announced last year that we're doing a joint venture with Cisco to essentially upgrade the car's data network within the car. It's really based upon a legacy system, which is, I would say, one of those old things in which the data network wasn't really built for adaptability, flexibility, and so on. So we want to use more open standards, open protocols like the internet. And that's why we're working with Cisco, which they have a history of doing that. And so to make the car really part of the IoT world, the car itself would need to be within its own data network to be something that is compatible with the rest of the internet.
And I know that Hyundai also announced a concept car that docked in your house.
Right. So that was something we did at CES, where so in addition to making cars, we actually make things like condominiums and hotels and that kind of thing. And so we're trying to bridge, and make use of the fact that we have both manufacturing of cars as well as manufacturing of buildings, and just to kind of play with ideas of, why not make your car, which in a sense is a type of living space, right, that you're moving from one space to another, but instead of just attaching or putting your car into your garage, which in that case your car is literally in your house, that it would be attached to your house in a different way to add more living space to your apartment or to your condo.
Okay. Sorry, that was my brain. So let me just get a read on who is in the room. How many people are here because you're building hardware? How many people are here because you're investing in IoT? Okay. We do not have a completely balanced group, but we have a fair number of each. That is one of my next questions, because you all have such a breadth of experience in the space. I'm wondering what advice you would give to someone who is looking to build or conversely invest in IoT now. Because I know it got a ton of press in 2015. It got panned for a while. People put it down. But Bain is projecting, I just checked the latest stats, Bain's projecting that annual revenues in IoT could exceed $470 billion by 2020. So it's still a completely hot space. What should people be looking at and doing in it? You've got money, you're investing, John. Want to speak to it?
So again, this is skewed towards automotive, okay, and it would be what I look at in the IoT space maybe would really be in the computing architectures, new silicon designs for deep learning, AI, 3D vision or 3D data processing on a mobile device. In this case, the mobile device is a car, but I can easily see it being in a tablet or a smartphone. So we look at new types of CPU chips because we believe that, yes, while we have connectivity, when you're mobile, though, I think most have experienced that even here, your cell phone coverage drops for whatever reason, right? And so in the car, if you're doing some very critical computation, if you rely on the cloud connection, you won't always have that. So what we want to have is very high performance computing in the car at low power levels that could then do lots of sophisticated processing in real time with a lot of data. So we look at computing architecture, new CPUs that would compete against, say, that could be the next NVIDIA, let's say, in 10 years.
And you said you are investing in companies in Asia. Are those the kinds of companies?
we would look at that, but also here in the U.S. or if they're European based as well.
Okay.
So I've we've raised a decent amount of money. I'm starting a new fundraising process now, so I have a lot of opinions about what it means to raise money as a hardware startup, and for both sides. And so I'll say to both the hardware entrepreneurs and to the investors who are interested in investing in hardware startups, you should recognize that it's kind of a slog because hardware takes longer than software, and there's a lot of things that the ecosystem, ourselves included, are doing to try and close that gap, but it's still true. And so recognize that things will take you longer, but that the barriers that are the natural barriers in the hardware world create potentially bigger opportunities in the long term. So building or investing in a hardware startup requires patience, but that patience is paid off. For us, I started the company in 2012. I've been at it for about 5 years. I'd say the business, we hit I don't know if you do the lean startup thing, but product market fit happened in 2013. That was pretty early, but economic fit of actually kind of really figuring out the business model was 6 to 12 months ago. So it took 4 years for the business to click, and then when it did, it just took off. And so that's my one piece of advice for everyone out there who's doing this kind of stuff.
But I don't know if you told people this part. You're working across 4 different layers of the stack.
That's true. So we do. So I'll explain a little bit about what we do. When a company wants to connect a product to the internet, we give them the chip that goes in the product that creates the connection. So a Wi-Fi module or a cellular modem. We give them and the firmware stack that runs on that chip, the security, everything like that. We sell them the SIM cards and the data plans for the cellular connected products to get them online. We give them the cloud platform that those devices connect to that gives them management and orchestration over the fleet of devices and helps them tie those devices into whatever data collection and analytics solution they want to use. And then finally, we give them the SDKs to build the mobile and web applications that their customers will use to interact with those products. So 4 layers of the stack, which is a lot and took a while to build and was hard, but has created value in the long term. So.
Yeah, I think I would just say on the founder side of things, just understanding that timeline that start early, but then also be very patient. That it's not probably going to be a quick path, as you mentioned. I think part of that goes with focusing on the market and your customer as soon as possible, and really understanding what the problem that you try to solve for them is, and knowing about what type of return benefit or direct economic benefit automation, if it is an industrial application, what that would mean to them. I think you can start on that right away and really do that deep problem solving and understanding their process from beginning to end and where you fit in with that flow of things. So that can be accomplished very early, and then from there, just being patient with your product build out and finding that solution to the problem that you identified as early as possible.
And Lucas, given your background, you had a leg up on understanding the customer base. Why did you start your company?
Yeah, so I come from a farm background, grew up on a grain farm in central Illinois, kind of have experiences across the ag value chain. Met up with my co-founder and we started looking at this issue specifically because he had a completely opposite background than me. He's kind of that true hacker at heart, grew up on the East Coast, not from a farm background, but was building these really cool sensors. So we met at the University of Illinois, a great engineering school, a great ag school, and kind of combined our interests, and it's been very beneficial on both sides of things, having that domain expertise, but then being able to take, Joey, my co-founder, someone who knows all these technologies, out to grain farms, and he's got these fresh pair of eyes where he looks at every process and says, why isn't that automated? Why isn't that automated? So we've been able to have some success off having kind of that mix of backgrounds in the area that we're focusing on.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. So to answer your question, what suggestions would I have? I would say I'm not sure for every IoT startup, but I can say what I did. What we did is we kind of started broad. We had a big dragnet, and we verticalized fast. And what I mean by that is like we basically figured out, and to add to Lucas's point, we figured out exactly who our end user was and why they would want our platform. And a lot of building the platform, I actually don't have, I come from more of a technical background. I worked at TI, I was a systems engineer before. So a lot of what we did to build a platform was, I asked a lot of questions when I went to factory sites, like why would quality inspectors want to use this? What part's most useful for operations directors? What are you missing in your current supply chain process? And that's kind of how I built a lot of what I have today. So it essentially came from verticalizing with feedback. But it's, I would say my major suggestion in terms of kind of what I did, just start broad and then verticalize fast.
And as someone with an anthropology and design research background, I applaud that as a first step because, Jesus, yeah, you've got to know where you're aiming to hit the mark.
Yep,
Rad.
absolutely.
Okay, so we've got a little bit more time, and I want to leave time for questions from the audience, but the nature of this conversation is about the future of infrastructure hardware. So I'd like to hear from each of you about what that is, like what in terms of ideas, trends, other companies. If you're not going to promote yourself, who else do you think is doing an amazing job of this? Things like that. So whoever wants to go first, lay it on us. They're like, not me, not me.
Sorry, what was the question?
The question is, the future of infrastructure hardware, what is that? Who's doing it well? What are the ideas that are going to win?
I guess it's kind of, I would probably say that the future is essentially, I mean, kind of, from what I've seen, at least for the subset of customers I'm going after, I would say it's very much about basically enabling a lot of the technologies that everyone talks about here in the Valley, which is, I guess, like deep learning, machine learning, being able to recognize issues during the production process, being able to react on them, predictive maintenance, predictive analytics, even deeper stuff, maybe AR, VR, stuff like that would be used potentially on the floor. A lot of it is basically enabling that. I think where many companies are today is those are all great technologies, but they need to reach 3 steps before that. So making that possible, I think, is going to be the next step, essentially.
And you said some of the people you're still working with are working with like pen and paper, right?
That happens too, yeah.
So a few thoughts on infrastructure for these kinds of things. First I'll say that the biggest barrier, I think, for adoption of Internet of Things, generally speaking, is 2 things. 1 is cost, and 2 is power. How much battery power does it take to send a radio signal is unfortunately more than most applications can afford right now, and the chips are too expensive. And so now what's happening is Moore's Law fixes both of those problems over time, and battery technologies are getting better and better. So over time, like, those barriers come down and new applications become possible every time there's kind of a step change in both cost and power budget for a core technology. And so I look at things like, so we do cellular. There's a new set of technologies coming out in the LTE spec. One's called Cat-M, and the other one is narrowband IoT. They're sort of next generation technologies that will be released. The US likes to do everything different. It's Cat-M in the US and then like narrowband IoT everywhere else. But like in late 2017, like new technologies come out that will make this stuff faster, cheaper, better. And I think that will lead to a major change in the shape of the industry. And I think that every time stuff gets faster, cheaper, better at kind of a step change, that's where you're going to see like big leaps in what we're doing in IoT. And I'll say, here's my sort of controversial thought on IoT. A lot of people complain about standards and interoperability and the fact that like this thing doesn't talk to this thing, and that's a big barrier for IoT. I think that that's probably not going to get fixed, at least for a really long time. And the reason for that is we have a tendency to think about the way that the web got built as our like shining star for interoperability. That basically there's all these people with web servers and there's all these people with web browsers, and they all work together. Like, doesn't matter what web browser I have, doesn't matter what web server I'm talking to, they all just work. And that's true because of the way that the internet is structured, which is web browsers talking to web servers. Like, they have to all work together, otherwise the web wouldn't work. Whereas in the Internet of Things, it's much more common for like these sort of private network kind of things to be created, where like my stuff has to talk to my servers, but it doesn't really have to talk to anybody else's servers or anybody else's stuff. Like, I just want to get data out of my slot machine to figure out like if it's gonna break, or like how it's been used today, or my my pool to figure out if the pH levels right. Like, it doesn't have to talk to other stuff. It's just going to stand alone. And so I think that the challenge that people expect to get fixed about standards and interoperability, I actually think it's going to stay fragmented for a while, because everybody's doing their own thing and there isn't a strong enough pull to actually consolidate under one set of technologies.
So when I think of infrastructure and hardware, I immediately latch on to the idea of materials and the manufacturing of those materials. And I think about the word Silicon Valley, which is enabled by this element silicon, and if you sprinkle some magic dust on it, it becomes a conductor, and when you do something else, it becomes an insulator, right? And so we all benefit from that legacy, or from that material that we just have naturally occurring here on Earth. And so when I think of infrastructure and hardware, I think of if we could revolutionize using things like big data or deep learning to understand how we can invent new materials and their manufacturing processes to create new conductors, semiconductors, glasses, plastics, etc., that hopefully are sustainable, that don't kill the earth and that kind of thing. And so I do see startups in the area of material invention and discovery. I don't think anybody's doing it well yet, but I'm hopeful that will change with advances in material understanding and computing power.
Yeah, and I think I would just say that the future of hardware, and really the benefit of hardware, I'd say that the future is software. That because we have hardware and have these connectivity elements and sensors in different places, the software is just going to get better and better. And within my own specific application of agriculture, our kind of big vision is to change the way that grain is exchanged. I think most people wouldn't realize that the largest privately held company in the U.S. is in the business of grain movement. That's Cargill. So we really see, with the sensing technology that we're going to use in introducing IoT for the farmer, since we have that sensing happening on farm, we want to leverage and use that to connect them to the right buyers and move grain from place to place based on this high degree of real-time quality information, as well as the other information that they've collected throughout the growing season. So I think that's kind of a key to the hardware, is the connectivity and the better communication that will be had from the software that's built on top of it.
It's all come full circle. And those are really beautiful and thoughtful answers. Thank you. Let me throw it out to y'all. We have time for a couple. Yeah. Here, let's make sure everyone can hear you.
Just wanted to find out from all of you guys, how do you define IoT, and what is your like target market or your demographic in the IoT world?
So, as an IoT platform, we face this question often, and it's a tough one to answer because everyone has their own definition, and it's not really an industry at all. One of our advisors likes to say that the Internet of Things is a catch-all for the stuff that hasn't earned its own name yet. Basically, they're like robots. Like, you call stuff a robot until it actually creates value, and then you give it its own name. Like, you call it an elevator, and so Internet of Things is like, as soon as something gets good, it gets named. So it's the catch-all of the stuff that's not good yet. I think that's kind of true. It's a very exploratory sort of industry. I think that the easiest way to define it is it's stuff that's connected that's not computers and not smartphones. So sort of defining it by with a negative. Or you could say it's stuff it's connected that doesn't have a screen or a keyboard. I think that when we look at how we split the market, so for instance, Particle, we target microcontrollers. So there's kind of two worlds of compute. There's microprocessors, the kinds of things you have in your computer. That's a powerful computer, runs an operating system, like, has a desktop and shows you apps and stuff like that. And then there's the microcontroller world, which is what's in your coffee maker. And that is a very small, very cheap little chip that has 10 kilobytes of RAM and is about as powerful as an Apple II, that runs your random devices around your house. And we focus on how do we get microcontroller-based devices online. How do we take appliances and bring them online? How do we take sensors, just really simple, cheap sensors, and bring them online? How do we take motors and pumps and basic controls and bring them online? So we think about, for us, Internet of Things is microcontrollers coming online.
I like that answer.
Here we go. Yeah. Did y'all get that?
So if it's the question was, what's the biggest barrier to scaling? I think for us, I think it's cybersecurity, because the number of places that you can infiltrate, if you will, the vehicle, there's probably nobody really knows what that is, or at least I don't know what that is. I think it's a lot, right? And it's a security problem that I think hasn't been really fully understood, and we don't really understand the problem yet. So I think that's the biggest impediment from a skill set viewpoint.
So I guess from a skill set standpoint, for us, the biggest challenge is basically, I would say, we have a challenge of basically having industry people who can essentially feedback value add or like business value into our product. Because we take a lot of things from a technological standpoint, and the key thing here is to provide why is this feature relevant from a business standpoint. And having people to bridge that gap is very valuable. And I would say that's a skill set that I love to have. Or people I'd love to have involved.
Okay, so we have time for one more. The young lady in the back, sorry, yeah? Which is to say, who's going out of business?
That's a really good question, and I'm going to say something controversial. Data. So here's the thing about IoT. Everybody says we're going to make all the money off the data. Yeah, you are, but the actual people who provide the services that like give you data storage and data analytics, it's the same stuff that we've been using for 20 years. It's databases, right? There's like probably 1,000 different database solutions that are all optimized around a specific solution. Like you want lots of writes but not many reads, use Cassandra. You want time series database, use Influx. You want key value store, use Mongo. Like there's so many great data solutions that solve different problems, and there's so many companies that are investing so deeply in solving the IoT data problem, and they're not solving an actual problem because the data problem has already been solved. All the IoT problems relate to other layers of the stack that look like commodities from the outside, but actually are where people face problems that they're willing to pay people to solve, which is sort of, where business value gets created. So, yeah, there's my.
Do you have one to add to that?
I probably wouldn't be the one to ask.
Oh, I think I already answered actually.
Okay.
Sorry.
And
I think it was
I want to just pause and say, if I didn't get to your question, I apologize. And thank you all for being here. And if there's something else that you're burning to know, these gentlemen will be here, I think, for a few more minutes. Okay. And thank you.